Hey, welcome to the Assured and Brazen podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Gertillis, and today's episode is about boundaries, love, and maintaining your principles in drawing the lines that are called boundaries. Now, this setup might look a little bit different from what you're used to. I'm usually on the couch, so this is definitely different, but I want to try something a little different. Different is good. It means we're growing, right? And I just want to apologize to you guys for last week. I didn't get a chance to record. A lot of moving parts and my creativity was very, very low. And I don't want to bring you guys anything bad. I definitely want to get better and grow as I create this podcast. Even if there's one person listening or there's 10 people listening, I definitely wanted to get better and better over time. So I just took a little break last week. I still have about 5, maybe 6 episode ideas that I have left, and I'll probably wrap the season up. And yeah, we're starting out working on season 2, and it's so far looking pretty good. I think it's pretty dope. Yeah, I'm excited for season 2 for you guys. If that ends up happening there, I'm just trying to see how I could experiment with certain things, like I did with this episode of this season. So yeah, as I mentioned, this episode is going to be about boundaries and how we can better find them, manage them. So I'll tell you a story about myself, and maybe we can start from there. So in my church, we actually give to the body of Christ, and it's called service. And nothing wrong with service. It's maybe singing, dancing, praising, maybe setting up the chairs, whatever it might be at your church. And the cool thing about that is we kind of get to experience this togetherness, like setting up the church or helping with the kids or things like that nature. And the cool part, I would say, is that like you get all these people from different backgrounds to buy in to helping God's church grow. And it's so interesting to see how people can view things at different times. Like my church is very new, so it's part of what we call a church plant. And church plants tend to be a little bit tricky because you have a smaller audience to work with, right? And I'm one of those people that like I'll say yes to everything. I enjoy helping in service, like, giving service. But for some people who maybe are not like me, they might say, "Hey, I'm doing too much," or "This is a bit OD," as we say in New York, overdoing it. Some people are not that open and optimistic to helping and serving, which is fine. It's the opportunity to grow in your patience, in your kindness, and your service. That's the AI idea. But the one thing I think that people miss about that is the biggest thing, which is learning where your boundaries lie. Now, in a community setting, church setting, your family setting, your friends, coworkers, that kind of thing, you kind of see and learn that boundaries is something that affects every area of your life. And how do we, as Christians, not only Christians, but anyone who is not a Christian, how do we define those boundaries and how do we use them to our advantage? Now, it's very easy, like I said, to say yes to everything and you have all these great experiences. Maybe you're an extrovert. Maybe you're an introvert and you say no to everything and you have no experiences. Either way, you have to find a balance because you don't want to be that person that's missed all these opportunities because you said no to everything. And you don't want to be that person that's overexhausted because you said yes to everything. Now, saying yes to everything will burn you out at some point. And it's something that I haven't received or experienced yet myself because I do say no to some things for sure, especially if I know it's going to cost me like crazy money. But there's things that like I'm also just like, looking at how I can kind of manage or navigate, right? Navigating your boundaries is probably the hardest thing that most people do. And as you get older, it doesn't get any easier either. You have people that have never been told no, so they don't know where your boundaries are. And then you have people that have been told no and they'll stop right there, right? I would say the people that haven't heard no are the people that are always gonna keep pushing, right? I've had it happen in my work before where I've told my managers no, and they just keep pushing, keep pushing. I do remember one time I had a work manager and I told him I literally could not because there was something I had to do that day, specifically that day. I had prepared, I was waiting for something to come home and all this kind of stuff. And like a package I was waiting for or something. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't care. You got to go there today." And I'm like, "Today?" So tried to make it work. Didn't work. It became a big thing. Anyways, all this to say is that like boundaries are important in any area of your life. And knowing how to call out someone crossing your boundaries is important as well. Now, of course, you guys know I'm always going to back this up with the scripture. So we're going to kind of treat this a bit different than we've done with the other episodes. And I'm just going to yap because I'm a yapper. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm yapping right now. This is off the head, off the dome. I do have a little something to kind of give me some guidance, but I wasn't feeling the way I wrote it. So I'm just going off the dome. So I do have the Bible verses though. I did write that down. So the first Bible verse I want to kind of bring to you today is Mark chapter 1, verse 35. Jesus withdrew, and let me pull this up on my Bible app. You got to have a Bible study app, guys. Clutch, clutch, clutch. Where is it at? Okay. Mark chapter 113. 135. My apologies. So in 35 it says, before daybreak, the next morning, Jesus got up and went out to an isolated place to pray. This is the NLT version, by the way. That's what I mostly read. And it kind of shows you a few things. He left while people still needed him. And at daybreak at that. And some people would say that boundaries is a selfish thing. And not only is it selfish, well, some people would say it's selfish, but not only is it not selfish, it's for yourself, right? There's times I myself will like withdraw from stuff. I'll get invited to stuff all the time, and people will be like, "Hey, are you coming? Are you coming?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll come, I'll come." And then there's times I'm like, "Yeah, like I had a hard week this week. I don't know if I could come today, or I don't know if I'm gonna come this weekend. I just want to like hang out this weekend." So there's some times where even myself, I'll withdraw from certain things. And it's not like I'm going through anything personal. There's time where it might be, but mostly majority of the time, it's just like me just doing me. And nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to be not at every event, not at every house party. Like I understand some people are very social. I'm not saying you can't be, but just knowing yourself and knowing where your boundaries lie. You got to think Jesus was kind of like a modern day celebrity. If you were always around people 24/7 trying to get your autograph, how would you feel about that? Right? Would you honestly, like, if you even think about it, you're trying to go to sleep and someone's trying to ask you to sign, or you're taking the time to brush your teeth and someone's asking you to sign. These are all awkward moments for someone, anyone on a given day. And this guy's out here performing miracles, building his ministry. So imagine the fact that like he took the time to be like, hey, I need to like reset my mind and kind of just like retreat from everyone around me, even his own apostles early in the morning, just to like kind of like take his time with God, take his time with prayer, all these different things that he might be needing to then reset himself, right? And if we think about him withdrawing, if you think that the logic of him withdrawing is selfish, that would make Jesus selfish. And it doesn't. So that argument's out the window for sure. But I think it's something that can be learned as a lesson to say, like, hey, there's going to be times where I have to withdraw and do my own thing. There's going to be times where I have to separate myself from the crowd. And all that to say is it's not a bad thing. Treat it like, hey, I'm just doing what Jesus did. And we always want to be more Christ-like anyway. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys is, when is the last time you protected your time the way Jesus did? Not a retreat, not a vacation, but just that, like, this is mine, right? And I'm keeping it. And I think when we get that opportunity to just use that time for yourself, for me, for example, I set my alarm every morning for 5:45 in the morning. Do I get up at 5:45 in the morning every day? Probably not. But I do attempt at least. And the reason why I do that is because I try to sit in prayer by myself without any distraction. So nobody's waking me up early in the morning to just sit and ask them to cook breakfast or anything like that. I get to just wake up on my own time and spend some time with God. And I think that's an awesome thing. Why? Because I don't have the distractions of the world. The first thing I get to do is spend time with God in the morning, whether that's in prayer, whether that's in fasting. I did like fasting like twice this week, actually, on Monday for another church. And then I did it on Wednesday for someone who's having a surgery. And it was dope, man. It was really, really cool. There's another scripture I want to kind of bring up to you guys. And it's Proverbs 4:23. This one you probably heard before because I've used it like countless times. But it does say, above all else, guard your heart. That's what I think I said it probably last episode, or maybe the episode about the dating and stuff. And your heart is a source of energy. It's a source of pride. It's a source of a lot of things. And you giving a lot of yourself, not only does it kind of do two things for you, right? It's like a source of energy too. Right? Like when you're dating, you have a few things that always happen. There's people that you will give your time and energy to. And there's gonna be times where you're tired, very tired, or you don't have the energy that day. And not being able to sit down and talk with them about how you're feeling is also a boundary that could be crossed. Like, I'll give you an example. The other day, someone asked me if I could rent a car. And I said, hey, yeah, no problem. And well, the thing about renting a car is it costs money. So my boundary was, hey, how can I best utilize this to my advantage? Can I have people come with me? Can I, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have boundaries when it comes to family. Like, for family, for me, it's everything goes. But I will have boundaries when it comes to financial obligations. So at the time that I was renting this car, I did not have a job. So coming into a little bit of money would have helped for sure. But I didn't ask for any like cash. But speaking to the person that asked me how I was planning to get to that destination, they actually spoke up for me. They knew that a boundary was crossed, I should say. And it's good to have people around you that notice or know what your boundaries are, right? For the simple fact that if they know where your boundaries are, they know not to ask or they know not to cross that boundary of yours. But if you don't have any boundaries, like you're a people pleaser, for example, people will always kind of take advantage. And if your partner, let's say your wife, your girlfriend, whoever it might be, is one of those people that knows how to set boundaries, you'll be okay because they'll protect you. You'll always have people to protect your boundaries. I've always had people around me that always kind of protect my boundaries because I'm always willing to say yes to things. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. There's some experiences where I think you have to say yes to just to live life. I've done marathons before just for the simple fact that I want to try challenging myself. If I don't want to do it, then that's a boundary that I set. And I think when it comes to boundaries, knowing where to draw the line is the most important thing. There's another scripture I want to talk to you about, and it says in Matthew 5:37, let your yes be yes and your no be no. A clear no is not a failure of your love or your attention. I think a clear no is an act of integrity. And here's the thing about having the power of saying no. Saying no means you're not tying yourself to something you don't want to do. Saying no also means that you don't have any obligations to do the thing that you're saying no to. But when the minute you say yes, people are gonna question your integrity. If you don't show up to something, they're gonna question your integrity because you already committed with a yes. So how do we maintain our integrity with a yes and a no? Because even the Bible mentions it, right? If you keep the intention to say yes, then your yes is yes. If you keep the intention to say no, then your no is no. If you say maybe, you always give people that opportunity to open the door to more questions, more anything. If you try to explain yourself, then you're in even more trouble because explaining sounds like an excuse, right? I've often caught myself doing this too. People have asked me like, hey, can you do this thing? And I'm like, no, I can't. Or I'll explain why I can't. And I don't really owe them an explanation, if that makes sense. And not saying that it's a bad thing to say no, but you don't owe someone an explanation to your no. You just owe them a no or a yes. And explaining why it's a yes or it's a no, it doesn't really change the fact that you either committed or not committed. Now, I will say this, will be people that say no and keep pushing, but that might be a new person in your life, a person that you're not around very often. And this person might ask you to not only cross your boundary, right? They will not take that no. And what that looks like, I guess you could say, is like when someone will ask you a question, and not only will they ask you that question, they're going to ask you why you were doing X, Y, and Z, or why are you saying no? Now, if you love this person or if you have admiration for this person, your yes will always be something that won't be questioned because a yes is a commitment, right? But a no to someone who's never had a boundary set by yourself or others will always seem like there's more under the surface. So you have to now show this person where your boundaries lie. And boundaries are something that you set for yourself, right? So whether you're Christian or not Christian, you have to see where the difference is from where you think the result will be. So for example, if I ask you to cut my hair, I won't because I cut my own hair. But if I ask you to cut my hair, I'm expecting that you can do the job. Now, most people don't cut their hair. So if I'm asking you, it might just be because I don't care how my result is going to be. But if I care how my result is going to be, I'm not going to probably ask you to cut my hair. But if I keep like pestering you to cut my hair, you will eventually probably fall to my trap, which is I want you to cut my hair. And whether you cut hair before or not, you might feel anxious, you might feel nervous. There might be other feelings or emotions tied to that. And your no, or that excuse that you're giving to explain why you're giving a no, is just another way for me to be like, oh yeah, no, don't pay attention to that. Yeah. But that's besides the point. Like cutting hair is just the example here. But to keep pestering someone to get to that point is where you start to add a burden on someone. And this is the other verse I wanted to kind of touch on. Galatians 6:2 and 5 So in 2, he talks about share each other's burdens and in this way obey the law of Christ. And in 5, they mention for we are each responsible for our own conduct. And the thing about this part is, as I mentioned, like we can carry other people's weight or burdens, but we're all responsible for each other. So not to say that like asking more questions is a bad thing. Maybe you want more clarification on the subject or that thing, but at the end of the day, you could be causing someone else to have a burden. And that's a different perspective than most people probably were thinking. Like, hey, why were you saying no to me, right? You're adding an unnecessary burden onto someone's life about why they're saying no to you. When you should just take their no at face value. And a face value no is not bad. It's not a good thing. Of course, maybe you're in need of that help and you just need someone, it's the last person you asked and everyone before them said no. If you say no, just take the no at face value, just like you take the yes at face value. Speaking of today, today's Saturday. I was actually supposed to help someone with their yard. I said yes, of course, but the weather said no. So funny story, but yeah, that's kind of how you gotta do things. So now another question I got for you guys, and just try to give me honest answers. What are you saying yes to that you need to say that you mean no? I want you to think about something in your life today that you might have wondered or thought about. And maybe you said yes to a partner. Maybe you said yes to giving someone a ride. Maybe you said yes to volunteering and you meant to say no. What does your yes cost you every time? Does it cost you love? Does it cost you time, attention, money? You got to think about that. Because like I was saying before, anytime you say yes, there's a result or a cost to it at the end. Second question I have for you. Is that activity or that person energizing you, like giving you life, or are they depleting you? That's another thing you got to ask yourself, because if you feel that you're going to be drained, for example, I said building the fence, I'm most likely going to be drained after that. A few weeks ago, before that, I went to do some yard work with a friend. He went to Dominican Republic, and I think he just came back like this week. And the yard work, I said yes, thinking, hey, it's not gonna be that crazy. I literally worked from like I think it was like 8:30. He picked me up at like 7 in the morning, and from 7 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon, so almost 12 hours basically. And he paid me like 225 bucks for the day. I'm like, hey, that's good money, man. I could show with that. So 225 for about a day's work. So it's at 8:30 in the morning. No, he picked me up at 7. And then we ended up finishing the day around 6 because he had to drop some people off and all that type of stuff. The next day, my forearms were on fire. But all that to say is that like I experienced something that was interesting for saying yes, but my result was pain after saying no. I would say the hardest one is family. For most people, setting a boundary for your family is also very hard. For your relationships is also hard, right? You have to know the difference between a hard relationship and a harmful relationship. What role were you assigned in your family? That's something that I ask myself. In this dynamic, you have to always think about honor and compliance. And they're not really the same thing. For example, my mom and my dad ask me to do things, and I always comply because I honor my parents, right? But someone like a girlfriend or a wife or anything of that sorts, you might not comply to everything because maybe you don't honor them just yet. You might comply to some of their demands, but they haven't really, how can I say, like earned the trust that is to be built yet. A girlfriend typically is someone who's fairly new. Maybe not always the case, but usually they're fairly new in your life. Like if you think of the grand scheme of your life, you probably had a girlfriend for a couple months to years where you've probably lived longer than your relationship. Or maybe your kids have lived longer than your relationship. So it's kind of cool to see how these dynamics play into like I said, every little aspect of your life. So I wanted to say this specifically. You can love your family and still draw a line. As I mentioned earlier, you have the opportunity to always kind of draw lines with family, friends, your social network, whoever that might be. And having that opportunity to draw lines is good because it shows that you still love the person, you still have boundaries that they have to respect. So whether it's your mom, your dad, your sister, brothers, if you come from a big family or a small family, you always have to have boundaries. I'd even say that's probably where your boundaries have to be the most strong, probably because having boundaries with even your own kids, I would like to think that your kids respect you. if you do have kids. And if you don't, like me, I don't have any kids, then you're probably going to be one of those people that easily get upset at your kids. If you don't draw those lines early and often, your kids will probably be walking over you, just like a lot of your friends will, maybe your family will. So if you're not drawing lines with family members, I would advise you to start today. Most families have good intentions, right? There's some that probably don't have intentions. And if you're listening to that and you're one of those people, hey, it's all good. But intentions of boundaries in the family is probably where you could show the most affection and love by setting those boundaries. And when I say that, I mean like knowing that you can set a boundary, someone respects it, they won't cross it, especially someone that loves you, like with an open heart, will probably, come to your birthdays, come to your kids' parties, come to your housewarmings, that kind of thing. That's genuine love. And if you're not experiencing that genuine type of love, maybe you need to find a different circle or people around you that will love you in that way. I have also work and time here as one of my points. Your time outside of work, is it actually yours? Now, are you managing your calendar or you're managing someone else's calendar? What I did typically was I actually started to make my own calendar and I would block it off with different time blocks. And maybe I'll probably post it somewhere and show you, I'll take a screenshot or something. But what I did with my calendar was I blocked it off. So anyone that would actually come into my calendar had to give me like a good enough reason to add them. And it had to be something that I'd want to do more than once or more than I would normally. So for example, today I have a birthday party to go to, and that birthday party is for an aunt who is turning 70 years old. Now, 70 is a very great age. The weather outside is terrible, but as I mentioned, this is an event that I was told a month in advance. So something like that, I can definitely put in my calendar. Not saying if you are adding something to my calendar that I will not take it. I just need to know at least a week in advance. So at least I can prepare myself if anything else comes up. When you give people access to your calendar, you will always, always be living on their time and not on your time. And the reason why I say this is because I've lived that. I had a job previously that I had to make my own schedule. And I never realized how nice it is to make your own schedule. If you're one of those people that work from home or whatever, you probably know how nice it is to be like, oh, I don't have to sit in traffic. I don't have to, well, maybe you have to be on meetings and whatever, but you don't have to like do a lot of things that would normally annoy you before you get to work and give you this bad attitude or someone cutting you off on the highway before you get to work. These are all things that like add up and make your day a lot more stressful. But the fact that you can maybe start work at 9 when the traffic's done, it made your day feel so calm, so relaxing. Even if I had to drive like 3 hours or whatever it was to get to work, it was still like one of those things where I was kind of like just happy to know that like I had flexibility on my schedule. But I've also worked in places where you had to have someone else make your schedule. And that was very chaotic. Like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but having someone else control your schedule is like, whoa. Like, imagine if I told you you had to go to Canada on Monday, San Antonio on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, and then California on Friday. You'd probably like say, "What? Like, why is this schedule so hectic?" Like, and then imagine that's your every week. You'd probably like lose your mind because that's so much travel time. Not to say, not only that, but like the amount of miles you're gonna rack up probably just doing that crazy route is insane. So, sorry, I said New York because I'm from there and, Knicks is doing good right now. So we're 2-0, all right? 2-0. All this to say is that, like, having control over your schedule is also a boundary. And if you can control your schedule, you have control over your life instead of how, like, other people or others control your schedule. Now, I would say if you're working and you're probably one of those people that does have a crazy schedule, maybe you're doing 12 to 12 or 18-hour days, 20-hour days, 24-hour days. My mom was a nurse, so I know what nurses do in terms of their hours. Sure, it's great money, but even your health is not a non-negotiable collateral for your job. Like that sounds crazy. Like, and I think with this new, AI stuff that's been around, well, it's not new, but it's been around for a little bit. They're trying to, of course, like make things more, how do I say, like trying to make things more efficient, right? So you're not wasting away your health, energy, and all that stuff. But I feel like, especially in nursing fields as well, where you have to be a bit more physical, maybe any type of construction thing where you have to be more physical, electricians, that type of thing, trades essentially. Those people probably won't get the opportunity to use AI as much, seeing how like, they're more hands-on. You still need people to cut your hair. You still need people to set up your building. Maybe they'll one day they'll create an AI that does all that stuff. Who knows? But for right now, it's pretty much staying the same. So we'll get to see how that works out and go from there. But I would say that's definitely something, a boundary everyone should have. Your health is a non-negotiable. Basically, anytime you're in a season or a situation where you think that your boundaries are being crossed, you feel depleted, you feel like you need a break or take a break, vacation, whatever it might be. You feel like you can't say no. It's okay to withdraw and step away in that instance. Take your time to think about it, right? People think that your answer has to be given that same day. There's times or instances where I've been able to just talk right off the bat and say, yeah, yeah, I'll do it. I'm not doing much. But to save your time and guard your heart, guard your principles, guard your boundaries, is also just as important as giving them up. It's a source of energy for you too. If you're always giving up your time, your energy, your heart, you have nothing left for yourself because you're going to be a shell of yourself. So I want you to see yourself in that light, in that way too. See where your boundaries lie, see how you want to maintain your principles and your boundaries. Make your relationships real, love from a full place, knowing that your boundary didn't destroy your relationship. That's the main things. Now, just to wrap everything up, I want you guys to do 3 things this week. Name one boundary you've been avoiding and try to be specific, right? Step 2, try to communicate it to one person in the clearest way possible. And step 3, hold it. Don't over explain. Don't apologize for the boundary. Just hold it. If it's a yes, it's a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. And either way, as I said, the person has to respect it. Now, I want to kind of close this out in prayer. If you're struggling with boundaries and you think that episode was helpful in any way, I'd invite you to, share this with somebody, leave a review, subscribe. And for everyone that gives and they have nothing left, send it to somebody. Anyone that you know that is not good with boundaries or says yes to everything or no to everything. Just let them know that, having boundaries is not a bad thing. It's not a thing that will isolate you, but it's a good thing that has to be respected. Having boundaries is, it makes you an integral person or integral Christian, I would say. So to close out with the prayer, thank you, God, who withdrew from the scenes, behind the scenes, Lord. Thank you for opening our eyes, Lord, today, to kind of see not only what we need to see, Lord, but to know and keep these boundaries so people around us can be filled up with our presence and your presence, Lord. In your name I pray, amen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Episode is in the bag. So just to close out, if anyone had the chance to see something that reflected in them in this episode, I'd like to invite you to share this with anyone around you. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a review anywhere, or whatever platform that you're on, just so other people can find it as well. This format was a little bit different. I pretty much just talked the whole time, but hey, I'm a talker, like I said, so I think this was a different style, which maybe we'll keep it going, maybe not, we'll see. But I definitely do enjoy getting to just talk. So, like I said, I'm a talker. So if you ever see me on the street, you can say what's up. I'm not a shy guy. So, and yes, you can come up to me. It's not a boundary. So yeah, if you see me around the streets, I love it. I love it. So all that to say, stay assured, stay brazen, stay bold. Peace.